Welcome to the broadcast, my fruits. Meghan Sussex. The sweet LAX flew into Heathrow, initially with a single bodyguard. If that's true, well, at least she's not as paranoid as her husband, who seems to require vast entourages to protect him from his own stupidity, revealing all the Taliban counts and this kind of thing. A single bodyguard to reunite with Harry for his 39th birthday upcoming. On Friday, he turns 39. She arrived at LAX by luxury white BMW. She alighted the limousine in ivory mules by Valentino, baggy trousers, baggy trousers, and a pair of Celine sunnies. I wasn't mad at the look. I like her in a ponytail, and I rather liked the sort of white Aladdin-y slippers she was wearing as well. Not too bad, and better than some of the high heels she wears. Let Catherine do the high heels. Let her do the stilettos. And I'm all for heels, but there's just something about Meghan and heels that doesn't quite pull it off. She didn't linger on our soil, I'm happy to say. She departed straight for Dusseldorf, and just a short while later she was seen arriving in Dusseldorf, looking very pleased with herself. And she is to stay at the Hyatt, the 5-star luxury Hyatt, with the hubby in the presidential suite. Where else, my dears? Where else? She wouldn't want the magisterial suite. That ain't good enough for her. She's going for presidential. I'm not sure how presidential it is to dine at the In-N-Out, but that is also where she was spotted, isn't it? In-N-Out, shake it all about. That's where she was, pulling up in a Range Rover, a luxury black Range Rover. Perhaps she was applying for a job. Toss some burgers, my dear. You've tossed enough word salad to munch on for a lifetime, my dear. Well, Harry's told us before, hasn't he, that they enjoy surprising the staff. Oh, he's so humble. They are just so modest. We enjoy surprising them. Ta-da! It's the Harkle Show, the Harkle Show. You can just imagine the staff, can't you, chucking their burgers at them. Hi. Who are these people that think we know them? Well, Harry's favourite order from In-N-Out is a double with fries and Coke. We don't have In-N-Out here in the kingdom. I can't remember if I've tried In-N-Out when I've been in America. I've been to a Fat Burger, but I don't remember going to an In-N-Out. Or did I? I still can't remember what a double is. I had a bit of the old In-N-Out with an Eskimo, as you might recall, my dears, and probably a bit of the old double as well, but I digress. And Meghan, she likes a cheeseburger. Actually, I'm partial to a cheeseburger. Cheeseburger, fries, and a side of jalapenos. And speaking about fast food, by the way, my dears, you know, it's coming into autumn season. This is the time when everybody starts talking about pumpkin spice and that kind of thing. Why anyone wants their coffee to taste of pumpkins, I don't know. But it's become popular. And I fell into the trap this year because I will usually go for something a bit cinnamony. There are various different syrups you can get. But I order sugar-free syrups because it's all sugar, isn't it, in those syrups that go in the lattes. But I put in a tiny little dash, not all the pumps that they put in the shops. I put in a tiny little dash, a bit of vanilla. I like a bit of hazelnut in a latte. There's various flavours that I've tried at different points. And I thought, I'll try a bit of this pumpkin spice. I'm sure I tried it years ago, but I don't make a habit of it. I tried it at somewhere local, and it was very good, actually. I rather liked it, just as an occasional. I couldn't have it every day, but, you know, maybe once every 3 weeks or something. But this was the real deal sugar, and I just can't. I tested out a sugar-free version that I found online, and I'm afraid it wasn't good. It wasn't great at all. So I'm not going to be pumpkin spicing this year, but I am curious. I see McDonald's, trashy old McDonald's, they do a caramel waffle latte. And that has 21 grams of sugar, which is still a lot and way too much for me and my body. But I'm just going to have a little sip, a little taste, and then I might put half away for the following day or something. But I mention this because it's been in the papers today that Starbucks pumpkin spice frappuccino has got 51.3 grams of sugar. Isn't that outrageous, dear? 51.3. That's about 12 sugar cubes. Sugar, all down in one. And sometimes this gets given to young children with these small bodies. You know, it's no wonder, isn't it, that everybody's turning diabetic, this kind of thing. This is why I have to stay very conscious about my sugar intake, because it affects my skin, my mood, all of this kind of thing. Got to keep it in check. It's this sort of thing that can lead to behavioural problems and land people in jail even. And luckily they have people like the Princess of Wales to come and visit them and try and help them with their addictions and their vices. And here she was today, touring His Majesty's prison hideown in Surrey. She was shadowing the experiences that a normal family would go through during a normal visit. She actually had a dog giving her a bit of a sniff. Yes, he was given permission to sniff our royal princess. She underwent these normal security checks, and she sat down with serving prisoners because she is patron of the Forward Trust. She learned about how the charity supports prisoners through addiction and recovery. They are given support to manage their addictions and help break the intergenerational trauma of it. And did you notice she was doing a bit of a wacko-jacko with the plasters all over the fingers? I thought she was bringing that look back into vogue, but no, our dear princess injured herself while trampolining. Honestly, trampolining with the children she was, how lovely. But she went flying and did herself a mischief. Poor ting. But Kensington Palace have issued a statement saying that it is a small injury, nothing serious. So that's good to know. She spent time in the Clink, an on-site restaurant at the prison that trains inmates in hospitality. She wore McQueen, surprise, surprise, in blue this time, with a white blouse and a big blow-dry. I noticed that, well, she wore centre parting today, but she's been back to the side lately, which is I'm so relieved that that major trend for centre partings all over the place is over. And I'm not disparaging anyone with a centre parting. They can look right on the right person, but they were so ubiquitous for a long time here in the kingdom. You couldn't go anywhere without these severe centre partings sort of plastered everywhere. They're okay occasionally, but it was seeing like this army of CPs everywhere, centre. And I'm so relieved that that's over. It came and went almost without me noticing. It's just recently I was out and about and I thought, I'm not being assaulted with all these curtains everywhere. So, yes, Catherine gave a rare homage to the centre parting, and it looked fine because it had a lot of bounce, although I'm a little bit disappointed because I'd been gearing up to see Catherine at the Earthshot next week. This was my mistake. I thought that she'd be accompanying William. to the States next week because he's leaving on Monday, I think, for Earthshot business, but of course it's actually November when she's going to accompany him to Singapore that she'll be dazzling in all the gowns, which I'm really looking forward to. Well, I'm sure there'll be some very special moments there in Singapore, but this time it will be William appearing solo. But then thinking on it again, I thought, actually, no, that's really good. He is our future king, and it won't do him any harm to be seen to shine on his own without support at his side from Catherine on this occasion. And also, while he's there next week in the States, Big Willie is going to be in River. Yes, he's going to be in the River Hudson, but literally, apparently, he's going to wade into the Hudson River to highlight a pioneering water project. And he's going to be meeting with the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, and his aides and courtiers are and will be managing his transition from Duke of Cambridge to the Prince of Wales internationally as a statesman, as an international statesman. And I'm actually considering writing to Prince William and urging him to take a keener interest in his dress. And I know it might sound like a trifling affair, and I've given you my thoughts on this a lot in the past, which is that he is very well dressed, he's immaculately dressed, and he looks lovely. But there is nothing exciting in the way of flair and panache. And traditionally, our kings have had fabulous style. And I'm not talking about appearing in a tiara and puffball sleeves, my dear. It's not that I want him to appear as some wildly flamboyant eccentric. But his father is a style icon. He is a style icon. And you can ask anybody in the know about this. And King Edward was also more of a style icon even than Charles. Perhaps, he was an original. The English drape, the cut to the suit, Savile Row and all of this kind of thing. It's been something of a tradition for at least 100 years, and I fancy rather a lot longer than that, for the heir apparent and the Prince of Wales to evolve into a style icon of each age, be that Prince Charles, be that Edward VIII, and the Prince of Wales as he was before then, and Edward VII, who was also hailed as a style icon of the time and a real original. And it would be such a shame to lose that just because we are in 2023. That sort of style is timeless and classic, but it needs promotion from the top. A style leader, if you will, and William would be perfect for that. He has the perfect body for that. Look at the height, look at the frame, and the attractive face, and the wonderful looking gal on his arm. He is perfectly placed to continue this. Sadly, you see, the passion has to come from within. I understand this. Charles has that passion, as did Edward, or David, whatever you want to call him, with all the different regnal names. The two Edwards, the Charles, the Georges, they had this innate desire for immaculate, snappy dressing. And I'm not talking about showy dressing. I'm just talking about immaculate style with some flair. And you really can have some fun with it, and you can also have some memorable moments. But maybe I should write to the king. I need him to take William aside and have a word in his ear and just try and ignite some flame. And also, once he gets into it, he could also then develop a liking for it, because the way that it makes you feel, you see. We all know that he appears a bit reluctant to wiggle into a kilt, but we'll see what comes when he progresses through to King Cozy Socks II. We'll see what other names we can come up with for him. But Derek Guy has been speaking on this. I don't know much about him, but he's a style maven. I think he's from the States, and he's become very popular on social media over the last couple of years. He's blown up, and one of the reasons he blew up was because he was giving favourable reports to the King of Spain and sending lots of compliments for his immaculate way of dressing. Well, I noticed in the papers he was asked for his opinion on some members of the royal family and politicians and a couple of celebrities. He happened to say that, who's that one that plays Bond? The Craig boy. Craig. Not Craig David. You know his name, my dear. Craig. Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig, he was saying that he wears suits that are too small for him. They're too sort of tight. Probably to give him the impression that he's just busting out of his suits. But anyway, he says, this Derek Guy, he says, King Charles is one of the best dressed men in the world. Some of his clothes these days look like they could use a pressing. But he has actually got a point there. I like the fact that King Cozy Socks is a little bit crumpled and a little bit rumpled and doesn't care too much about it, so I don't mind. But yeah, there have been a couple of occasions where I've thought, a little bit of an iron wouldn't harm. But I secretly rather like it anyway, because it looks all the more cosy and lived in. But he says, fabulous. I don't know why that is. Clearly he has the resources, but I couldn't say enough good things about his style. So he loves the king, as every other style maven does. But he says, when he dies, I think it will be a real loss for style. He's the last link to that era when men wore tailoring well. Stylistically, William is very conventional. Not badly dressed, but he doesn't have that stuff I love about old-style tailoring. Exactly, that's the thing. He doesn't capture the imagination, and it's bland. It's bland and conventional. And yes, he looks very good, but some of us want a bit more from our future king, and I am one of those. I back up Derek Guy, and for many who have been calling for this, let's not lose it. Derek Guy offered his opinion on Harry and said that when he's at events or wearing military garb, then they're always perfectly tailored. He thinks he's doing a good job there, but he says in other situations it always looks like basic, ready-to-wear garments. His father has dressed beautifully his whole life, but Harry doesn't strike me as someone who cares about this stuff. Well, in fairness, he doesn't need to, because he's not an official royal anymore. So, yeah, we can have a look and a peek and a little bit of commentary, but, you know, he can go out in a box of rags for all I care. Wear a pair of purple sequined hot pants for all I care, my dear. But don't call yourself a prince or a duke. William was also spotted at the Rugby World Cup, Wales versus Fiji, and he was pictured in the dressing room, and he stopped by for selfies with admirers and had a good old jolly time. A few comments with regards to Angela Kelly. Dawn says, if Angela Kelly was giving stories to the press, as Harry suggested in his book, she would have been long gone by the Queen, as the Queen was not stupid. An immaculate point. By putting what Harry put in his book, he is also suggesting that the late Queen wasn't up to her job of protecting herself, when anybody will tell you that her mind was sharp and that she was on top of things. Why does he continue parading this narrative that she couldn't look after herself, or that she was too stupid to see what was going on? You know, if these rumours about Angela Kelly selling stories or planting stories was brought to your attention, Harry, don't you think that they would have been brought to the late Queen's attention by somebody, if not you yourself, and that she might have been able to look into the matter herself? She did have a lifetime of knowing. I mean, even her nanny, old Crawfie, got up to some kinds of mischief in the past, and it's not unusual. We have old Billy Backstairs, or whatever it is, Backstairs Billy, and all, you know, the likes of Paul Burrell. It's not as if she is not au fait with the world. So that's a good point. And Wendy King says Angela Kelly had a process to follow, and Queen Elizabeth II chose the tiara. It was her job to record and document the lending of that tiara. Angela Kelly was basically a museum curator. Exactly, my dear. It's not like she was plucking a headband from my dresser or from Claire's accessories and just dishing it out, throwing them about like confetti, my dear. This was a tiara from the royal collection. You just think they get handed out willy-nilly like the pick and mix? And in Harry's book, he had spoken about being taken to the late Queen's private dressing room next to her boudoir, where he'd never been before, never been allowed. But this occasion, and this speaks to the absolute intimacy that Meghan was invited into. Meghan was allowed into the Queen's most innermost private quarters, her dressing room next to her bedroom, that Harry had never even seen throughout his entire life. She was invited in there to look over a collection of tiaras. Can you believe, in your wildest fantasies, the Duchess of Sussex is impressed by the like of Beyonce? You know, I can't believe she knows my name. Or any one of a dozen million trashy celebrities fangirling all over the place. I mean, she was in the late Queen Elizabeth, icon of the last 100 years, invited into her personal private dressing room to pick a tiara. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? And you couldn't wish for something with higher honours. Not good enough for that girl. Or the grandson. What an absolute shame. What an absolute shambles. Well, she was invited in there, and when she chose one, the Queen advised her to try it out with a hairdresser before the day of the wedding, as is only normal and natural. Well, Harry says that he contacted Angela Kelly, who was also at this initial meeting, by the way, in the dressing room. He contacted Angela. He claims there was no response. No response from Angela. Chased her up. Eventually there was this confrontation. She said, it can't be done. It can't be done. And he said that she was obstructive, very obstructive. And she was banging on about police escorts and needing a bodyguard and everything. Well, I think the devil's in the detail, and I'm sure that the full story is what he has omitted, and it would be lovely to know what went on, because we don't know, and he doesn't tell us, where they demanded to have this hairdresser appointment. I'm sure when the late Queen suggested an appointment, that she meant within the confines of the palace or wherever it would be easy to courier the jewels. So perhaps the location that they suggested made Angela Kelly's work a lot harder and a lot slower. And another idea is that perhaps she wasn't obstructing Harry, she was protecting the late Queen, or protecting other individuals and courtiers behind the scenes who weren't pleased with some of Harry and Meghan's plans and demands. We just don't know, because they omit so much from what they tell us, and we have found out they twist things or magnify other things, that it's this hall of mirrors, isn't it, my dear, that you can't get to and can't really grasp the truth of. El Norab says, having worked for a private collection lent to the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, this story of Harry thinking he could just borrow a piece from the royal collection without paperwork, the very notion is impossible. When we lent our pieces to a world-renowned museum, not a hairdressing appointment taking place who knows where, the procedure is exacting. The insurers need to be informed. This is paramount. Their permission is necessary. Oftentimes, insurers' security needs to be informed of time and dates of transport and coordinated. The piece needs to be photographed and every scratch, minuscule dent recorded, noted and acknowledged by all parties. Everyone scheduled around the piece moving. All the provenance documentation copied and distributed. Signatures of all parties involved secured and notarized. I'll stop now, but you get the picture. Yes, I do, and thank you very much for putting me in the picture, El Norab. Thank you very much, because yes, one can guess, but one doesn't actually know. The Royal Collection has all of these procedures and layers. You cannot just rock up, knock on the door, and put the tiara in your pocket and bring it back when you are done. And this is why Prince Harry, I believe, is the epitome of entitlement, because he thinks that he can just wade in, bowl everyone over and say, yeah, we want the tiara, thanks. No, we want it now. What do you mean can't be done? Or I emailed you, you haven't replied. Well, perhaps when you emailed Angela Kelly, she then had to contact all these other various moving parts to arrange wherever it is that you needed to have the tiara dispatched, and you wanted it then and you wanted it now. Well, other people have procedures and they have to do their job. Christina Jones says, was Angela Kelly the late Queen's best friend? Because I referred to her as the late Queen's bestie, but then I did say that I was over-egging the pudding, you know, but this is what she is referred to a lot in the press, especially in her later years. I would have thought Her Majesty had a very close circle of friends she would have relied on. Angela Kelly may have been a close companion and valued employee, but best friend? Why does she even need to respond to anything on social media? And for those who don't know, Angela Kelly has also been calling the Queen her best friend on social media. I miss her, she was my best friend, this kind of thing, which I think is a little undignified. But just as I think it's undignified of Fergie to keep rattling on about how the Queen was her best friend and second mother as well. I'm not saying that she doesn't feel these things or that they're not true to them in some cases. It's just the indignity of royalty hammering on. So you have to remember, my dear, that yes, she did have a close circle of friends, many going back a lifetime, but most of them were dead. You know, she was 96 years old, and lots of her friends were slightly older than her, and lots of friends that were her age or younger than her had already gone. So in her later years, she didn't have what she had before. Margaret Rhodes would have been right up there. Her cousin, Margaret Rhodes, she died in 2016, so it was that 6 years before the late Queen died. And she was close to Sophie, of course, and her daughter, Anne, and I suppose you could say Fergie to some degree. But they all run households of their own, and ultimately they are family rather than simply friends. Myra Butter was another one that the late Queen lost in the years before she died, who was 97. There was Sir Michael Oswald. It wasn't just ladies. Sir Michael Oswald, the racing advisor at 86 years old, he died on the day of Prince Philip's funeral. They were dropping like flies in those last few years. There was Lady Farnham in 2022, who was aged 90 when she passed. Lady Rupert Neville, who was known as Mickey, at 97 years old. We covered lots of these when they passed, actually, while the late Queen was still alive. I mentioned a few of them. There was Ivor Herbert. There was the Duchess of Grafton. She died in 2021. And if I was to guess, I don't think that the late Queen would really use a term such as best friend to describe anybody. I think she would find it slightly gauche and a little bit vulgar, but she might have chosen Prince Philip himself. Who can really say? But we can say in those final years, remember, she was also in the royal bubble for a long period of time. She had to form a bubble, and Angela Kelly was part of that. And imagine how much more time the late Queen had on her hands for the first time in her life while she was in that bubble. And she would have still been able to find plenty to be occupied with, but she would have had a lot more leisure time, if you will, a lot more time to sit and chat, watch television with Angela and get a bit cosy. And so they were unusually close for that sort of royal relationship. And there is also the element of caring that would have had to have been implemented in those final years. She had an access to Her late Majesty and a view on that life that is so rare and very special. But she was, at the end of the day, an employee. She was, at the end of the day, help. And that is why I agree with you when you say, why does she even need to respond to anything on social media? Do I blame her for reacting? No. But do I encourage her to not react in such a way? Yes. And I think that would honour the late Queen's mantra of never complain, never explain. Thanks for dropping by. I appreciate your company. I'll see you next time. Feel free to leave me your fruity thoughts. And if you'd like to treat me to a sugar-free pumpkin spice latte or something else, then my tip jar is in the description box. Thank you, my dear. Actually, I need a long, cool drink. I'm sweltering hot and my voice is going, as you've probably noticed. My voice is going, so it does this in the heat, I'm afraid. Anyway, I will see you soon. Ta-ra, my dears, and toodle pip.